So we have an American Pope. That's a thing. The stake starts now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Stakes. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Michelle Kinney, and we are the co-founders of the Seneca Project and Webby Award winners.
Yeah.
We're going to ride this all the way. The Webby Awards are on Monday. We're so excited, and thanks to all of you and your support, we were able to win for American Girl, and we're just still super thrilled about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, speaking of, I was on with Jim Acosta earlier this evening, and Jim is just so thrilled to join us at the Webbies.
I know. I'm so excited to see him.
Special guest with us for the Webby Awards on Monday because, I mean, he's been super supportive of us, and he was really supportive of the voting process for American Girl, and I really firmly believe he helped us win. He helped us put us over. So why wouldn't we have the fabulous Jim Acosta as our special guest on that? So, and he's so humble and so nice. He's like, thank you guys so much for thinking of me. I'm like, are you kidding? I was like, Jim, first of all, we love you. Second of all, we love you. So of course we would invite you.
And also, like, I mean, this has been a really transformative time for him in this past however many months. And I think that's something to celebrate too. So we're celebrating him and everything that he's doing. He's like the rising star, if not the star of Substack right now.
He's like the hottest thing on Substack, which is so funny because he's so humble about it.
It's so weird to me.
I said, Jim, next year we'll be celebrating you at the Webbies. And he was like, oh, you guys are so nice. I'm like, you're so cute. He's the best. So, but anyway, so there's that. This has been a really interesting week in politics. And there's just, I mean, like every week is eventful. This one was particularly eventful given what was so at stake with the Pope here. And neither one of us are Catholic. And so, like, for us, it was a little bit different because I don't want to be dismissive of it because there's 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. But I'm not in, like, I don't get it all. The whole, like, oh my God, I'm crying. This is a big deal. I'm like, okay, but I understand kind of the geopolitical significance of who the Pope was going to be. And, you've done these deep dives on the whole, like, Catholic Illuminati of Opus Dei and worrying about, that's right, making sure that it wasn't the crazy MAGA Pope getting selected. I mistakenly thought it was because I saw it was the American, which we've never had before. Apparently there's never been an American Pope. And I was like, oh my God, I was driving. I was on my way to an event and I was like, oh my God, the Opus Dei guy got it. And Michelle was like, what?
No. I was like, wait a second. No, I don't think so. And then I was like, oh no, did I read it wrong?
Right. So. And then when you told me that, I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. I was like, I'm happy to stand corrected on that.
It's so great. And like, while I am not Catholic, I feel like I am Catholic adjacent because my mom's whole family is Catholic. I grew up in a very Catholic small town city and all my friends were Catholic growing up.
Yeah, you're Irish Catholic, right?
Yeah, my husband grew up Catholic. I just, so, I feel even, I guess maybe a little culturally, just like in terms of traditional kind of things, Catholic, but by no means like
practicing, right?
Like no.
Yeah.
But like I did get, it's weird because I'm not a believer, I'm not a practicer, I don't prescribe. But when they said it was the American, like I got choked up. For a second because I was like, wow, we don't suck all the way. Like, you know what I mean? And Julie Roginski and I did a Substack live right after, and just to kind of talk through it as the news was coming in. And we discussed just how it's giving us a little hope as Americans. Like he is an example of the goodness of Americans because he is following, while he is, moderate, and maybe, of course it's Catholicism. They're not going to like give us like, female priest or something right away. But, but he has
those
followed
are the Episcopalians, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yes. But he prescribed and followed the teachings and if you will of Pope Francis, who cared about migrants and cared about people that had less than, and he has scolded JD Vance on
He
occasion.
did. He sure did. I was explaining to my husband before we came on air because he's like, okay, who is this guy? And I was like, this is what he looks like. I said, and he scolded JD Vance last year on Twitter, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, he did. So I was just gonna go through a few of these things, and then we are gonna get to the tweets because I do have them. He is from Chicago. He is from the South Side of Chicago. Right. I listened to him talk, just like on an old video. Like, this man has a Chicago accent.
Yeah, he does.
Like, it's amazing. I was like, duh, Bears. And so, and so I'm actually kind of excited for Chicago too. I mean, because like how cool. So they're already, saying he was the pride and joy of every priest and nun at St. Mary's on Chicago's South Side. He was an altar boy. Of course, Trump congratulated him. I wondered how he was going to go about this because it's not good news for him.
Mm-hmm.
He says, congratulations, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It was such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo. It's the 16th, right? 16th, 14th?
Yeah, 14th.
14th? I'm really bad at Roman numerals. I
know, me too, but I think it's 14th, yeah.
It will be very meaningful moment. Cool. So he was born in Chicago. He's 69 years old. He is Peruvian though, because he spent a lot of his life in Peru. He loves it there. And
dual
that's why
citizenship. He's got dual citizenship.
He sure does.
Since 2015.
Yep. And I just, again, like going back to the Catholic thing, because Donald Trump put up that stupid picture of himself as Pope. And I actually think that almost like helped the American Pope probably a little bit more. I mean, I'm just making that up. I don't know if that's true, but and he was like, Catholics love it, and they didn't. They did not like it at all.
No.
And so here's some of the tweets. Okay, so this is not a man who tweets often. Robert Prevost reposted a tweet saying, as Trump and Bukele from El Salvador used Oval to laugh at Fed's illicit deportation of a U.S. resident, once an undocumented Salvadorian himself, now DCO Evelio asks, do you not see the suffering? Is your conscience not disturbed? How can you stay quiet? And
he's the first Pope with a Twitter account. Like,
I know.
That's like, welcome to the 21st century.
Right. Or like has a Twitter history before he became Pope.
Yeah.
And here is on February 13th of this year, tweeted at JD Vance. I mean, he didn't at him, but it's he writes about him and says, Pope Francis's letter, JD Vance's Ordo Amoris, and what the gospel asks of all of us with immigration. And then he tweets again. I guess this was right before February.
This was last February. Yeah.
Well, yeah, February 3rd, 2025.
Yeah.
JD Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. So
I mean, clearly Donald Trump or whoever was writing his Twitter did they not know this?
Right.
All he saw was America. He was like, oh, the guy's American? Great. I don't know that he knows about all of the history. And I don't think he also knows that the reason why he chose the name Leo was because Leo was welcoming of immigrants.
Exactly. And here's a tweet of Robert Prevost's in 2015, says it's time to end the death penalty. I mean, there's a whole lot of things happening here. And this reporter kind of just broke it down, says, and this was retweeted by Gareth Gore, who wrote the Opus Dei book. The new Pope didn't post once in 2024. In 2025, he posted 5 times. He criticized JD Vance's take on Jesus, posted an article critiquing Vance's statements on deportation policies, retweeted the Pope's health twice, and then retweeted criticism of Trump and Bukele's laughter at Abrego Garcia. So
he's clearly got a point of view here. He's clearly got a point of view. Yeah. It's interesting because, well, again, he's from Chicago.
Right.
And so therefore he's no punk.
Nice.
And there were people who were on that said that they went to school with him or they studied with him, and they were saying that even when he was a kid.
Right. He went to Villanova. Like, how crazy is that? I mean,
That's right.
as like a former Big East, basketball like we played Villanova all the time. And it's just, I remember actually Syracuse playing Villanova somewhere in New York, and Joe and I were on the subway with a priest who was like one of the head priests at Villanova, and we rode all the way to Brooklyn with him. I mean, it's just like so bananas.
He's like an everyday pope, which is kind of like everyday man pope, and it's the same thing with Francis, the one that he's the successor of. And it's like, I think that they were sending a message, because it was very quick. Right? This wasn't a long, drawn out thing. It was very quick. People were stunned. I don't know if you saw it live.
Oh, yeah. I was watching it. Yeah.
Right? It seemed like people were stunned. They didn't know. They were like, wait, what? And
people like running over there.
Didn't know what to do. But I think this is you're right. This is a good thing. We didn't get like the creepy, weirdo Opus Dei Illuminati type of pope, which could have been.
And I spent too much time making this, so I just feel like.
Is that Bezos?
No, that's the Pope.
The new one?
Yes, that's the new
Pope. It looks
Pope.
like Jeff Bezos.
It does a little because I put the fedora on him.
Oh, okay.
Because of the Blues Brothers. I felt like, I was like, I saw a tweet that was like who else from Chicago was on a mission from God? And I was like, oh, I have to make a thing.
The Blues Brothers, yes.
With a picture of the South Side of Chicago.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's all good. And just to remind people again, like the Opus Dei part of this. This is Gareth Gore again, the Opus Dei guy. Habemus problema.
That's funny. We have a problem.
Yeah. And so, this is a story just from recently, very recent, I think like last week, the week before, 43 women are suing the secretive Opus Dei Catholic group in Argentina for slavery. And these kinds of
screaming about fucking child trafficking and sex traffickers and pedophilia, blah, blah, blah. Look at who.
Yeah.
It's always every accusation is a confession.
It says Opus Dei, which is a presence in more than 70 countries, but is strongest in Spain, Italy, and Latin America. They have been accused of coercing women as they are children and adolescents into a life of domestic servitude. They say they were forced into working up to 12-hour days, cooking and cleaning for elite members of Opus Dei without pay.
Oh my God, it's like Martha's.
It's like Martha's. It's like Scientology. This happens in Scientology as well.
Yes.
Which is a cult. Right. And so, and if you're just joining us for the first time and you're like, what's Opus Dei? They do talk about it in the movie/book, Da Vinci Code. It is like a very dramatized version of it, but there is a lot of similarity with the self-flagellation, the corruption, the cult-isms, and they're very integrated into American politics and government. Leonard Leo, who is the head of the Federalist Society, who has helped the conservatives pack the court with billions of dollars, is part of Opus Dei. J.D. Vance was recruited by Opus Dei into the Catholic Church in 2019. Peter Thiel also has ties to Opus Dei going back to his days at Stanford. So this is like it's very, very integrated into American politics. And that's why had they chose, an Opus Dei aligned candidate or pope, this would have been it could have been disastrous.
So there's another part of this too that people need to know is that the Leonard Leo connection to this has ties to the movement that overturned Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And also ties to the Supreme Court case right now with the religious schools. And they are all part of that same very well-funded, very well-organized religious legal side of things, trying to change our culture to make it more theocratic. And there's been some they're like crazy, kind of like the Scientologists where they stalk people. Last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago at the Substack party, I met Heidi Prisbilla, who used to be a Politico reporter. And she actually is mentioned in that Opus Dei book with Gareth Gore, because she started doing reporting on this in early 2024, exposing and tying together the Leonard Leo connections and what was happening with the religious school case that's now it's at the Supreme Court. That was all planned. And Amy Coney Barrett had to recuse herself because it was her like best buddy that was leading the legal challenge of all of this, and they had ties. So she had to recuse herself because of.
I mean, at least she did.
At least she
it's
did.
More than like Clarence Thomas or any of these
shit.
Clowns.
Right. So there's a lot of, more nefarious things going on here, an undercurrent that that's just not being reported. And so it's bigger than just like, there's the Pope thing and that kind of like, but there's also direct implications for domestic policies that are affecting us right now. That's why this case in front of the Supreme Court concerning the religious schools is a big one, because that can have that, blowing up the separation of church and state stuff with money and funding.
Listen, it's very likely to. I mean, let's be real.
I mean, that's the concern. And what happened to Heidi when she was reporting on this, they literally had protesters in front of her home. They hired a billboard truck to call her like all kinds of crazy names, saying that she's some kind of radical lefty nutty person, and had a billboard truck circling the political offices in DC. They harassed her. They had a coordinated effort to try to take her down, because
which again is what they did to anybody who's reported on Scientology as well.
That's right. Like, it was like horrifying for her. They broke into her bank account and were like,
I'm sorry.
Yes. What? Crazy stuff. Yes, it was allegedly. But yes, they went after her. It was crazy stuff, man. And so so she had to endure that because she was uncovering what was going on. And so these are not good people.
No. And like I knew someone who was working for Alex Gibney at the time that he made Going Clear for HBO. And they said they would get all of these like calls with threats, and like they call in and like breathe heavy and stuff. And like, it's again,
they would follow people around like the Scientology people. Yeah. And because they're very well funded. They have properties all over the world. They're very powerful and nuts and scary.
And like, this is just, I mean, not to make it a whole conversation about cults, but like we bring it back to MAGA and everything that's happening with the fascist far right it is cult thinking, it's cult mentality, and same goes with Opus Dei. And like, you can see where they're aligned, especially then if you look at the tech oligarchs and their cult of thinking, and how the three factions have kind of overlapped into this, Venn diagram, which in the middle is like total domination and collapse of American democracy. And they all want it, and they have a lot of money, and they have a lot of power.
However, very Gilead. It's very freaking Gilead.
But there are more of us. And so that's,
thank God. And there are people like us and others who are spreading the word, so that it's not such a shock. It just doesn't come out of nowhere when people start to see the signs and what's going on. So, you can go, whoa, hold on. Because like, again, it's similar to the whole like Moms for Liberty movement. All of those things are intertwined. They try to make it seem like it's just, we want to protect our kids in schools. And, no, it's much more nefarious than that. And this is how they did it. This is how they did it to overturn Roe v. Wade. And it's the same people going after schools and trying to.
And contraception now too.
Right. They know that that's the next place to take out to further their agenda. So pay attention, folks. Pay attention. You heard it here first. What's going on? So we'll see what happens with what the Supreme Court decides, but that could be like crazy. Like Oklahoma, look what's happening there. They're buying Trump Bibles. They're making people say, that they're putting
that
the 10
superintendent of those schools is bananas crazy. Like that, he legitimately, again, not to make it all about Handmaid's Tale, but literally, I mean, that's why the show and the book and the story is so chilling, because you see all the similarities. And like, this is the kind of guy who would be a high commander in that kind of society, because
for those who are watching, if you guys are Handmaid's Tale watchers or fans of the show, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you're not watching The Handmaid's Tale, you should. It's a tough watch, especially if you're a woman, but it's relevant. It is relevant. It is relevant
AF.
Are you caught up, by the way? Are you caught up?
I sure am.
Oh my God, I caught up last night. I was like, I gotta talk to Marcel about this.
I feel
I'm like, fine. Even Marcel, my husband's been watching it with me. He's all caught up. And like at the end of this week's episode, he was like, fuck yeah, finally. I was like, look at you all into it. All into it.
But also, what a disappointment. And I'm not, no
Yes.
spoilers here, but what a
no spoilers.
disappointment.
We're not gonna say.
No, but I will say since season 1, I have been like, that person would be a loser if
Yes.
Gilead didn't happen, which he has talked about.
Right.
But,
well, you find out like in the last episode before this one, you find out kind of there's more context, which explains certain actions without giving it away.
We should just do like a 30-minute thing where we go through the first few episodes and talk about it. And we should call it spoiler alert. Yeah. And we should invite anybody who wants to come and talk about the show, because I don't want to ruin it for people, but
it's really good. I don't know how many episodes is the season. Because we're on 7 now? So
I think it's 3? Like 11. I think there's like 3 or 4 left. I think.
So dying to see how they bring it since it's the final season.
I didn't read the Testaments and with the book, and I didn't know anything about it. And I came across an article about it because it's like 15 years later, and I was like, I am annoyed that I know that this book exists, and so
you kind of know a little bit from the book. Don't say anything because I didn't read any of it. Because from my understanding is that this season, the last couple seasons, are pretty much like interpretations because it ends where the original books were. So like I think like season 3 or 4 was like the end of it, and then the last 2 or 3 seasons has kind of been more of their interpretation of what they think would have happened.
And Bruce Miller, who's the showrunner for Handmaid's Tale, worked on the Testaments with Margaret Atwood, because there's going to be a series called The Testaments, and they're already filming it.
Oh, good. Well,
so just
okay. So it doesn't end. FYI. I mean, so we will still get our fix.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anyways, it's like it's like cathartic in a way and horrifying at the same time.
It is. It like, I don't know. It's like
a warning.
Yes, it's like in the beginning of the pandemic, like I couldn't stop watching Contagion.
Oh my God.
Contagion, and like
you're a doom scroller.
No, it's not though, but it's cathartic. It's like, okay. Because you know what it is? I think it's like, okay, what I'm seeing and feeling, I'm not crazy. Like this is happening and this is how it would happen, or these are the things, and Contagion actually was a film that was a lot of experts, and like I think it was like Dr. Bright or Brilliant or something like that. Anyways, there was a lot of people that were speaking during the pandemic, those early days that worked on this film. And then I watched documentaries about the 1918 pandemic and, interviewing people who
we didn't have anything else better to do. So everyone was becoming,
there was no sports, there was no new shows,
everyone was becoming an epidemiologist.
Yeah. Why not? I was like, I have a theater degree, and also I'm an epidemiologist.
Well, I mean, then that could qualify you to be the Surgeon General of the United States, because there's a new candidate for the Surgeon General of the U.S. who doesn't have a medical license. She's a wellness guru, which
and let me
wacko.
So okay, let me get to this other lady first, because we'll go back to this.
Yeah, we'll get back. I mean, we didn't plan to talk about the Surgeon General thing, but it was a good segue, actually.
Yeah, well, I had this here. Yeah. Trump picks conspiracy theorist wellness influencer Casey Means with no medical license to replace Fox contributor as Surgeon General. So the last person who he picked was so unqualified that Trump pulled him out, which is really saying something. Like, that's how bad it is. But I pulled this from
a woman. I thought.
I don't even remember.
I think it was a woman. It was a woman doctor person. But whatever, another Fox person.
Right. And I pulled this headline from The Verge from a couple days ago that really kind of hit the mark, at least for me. It says, death is the policy. Under RFK Jr., Make America Healthy Again means junk science like survival of the fittest. And it says here, do your own research. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. advised parents considering vaccination for their children during an 80-minute televised interview with Dr. Phil last week.
Of course.
He offered the loaded directive with some of his go-to anti-vaccine falsehoods Common shots are neurotoxic, blah, blah, blah. He goes on to say, like, oh, the measles aren't that bad.
We already know. I mean, we already know that
Right.
RFK Jr. is a 15-year heroin addicted, brain worm having, bear cub killing, and like
whale decapitating.
Whale decapitating. Didn't he feed like mice and shit to his snakes or some shit? The guy is a complete fucking whack job.
Right.
And he is now in charge of our nation's health.
Yes.
So this is and now they're going to put this wellness guru.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's like, death is the policy. And it says here, which I saw this and I was like, oh, this is actually a really good point. There's a sort of Darwin-esque notion that the only fittest survive. And like that is at the heart of all of this. And, and he's gone on and talked about, people with autism basically should be put on a registry, and we should be, and then they're going to do a study into do vaccines cause autism, which we all know it does not.
They do not.
And so I wanted to pull this because, again, here is the energy that we need to be bringing into the next era of Democrats.
Governor Pritzker.
Here we go again. We're in our Illinois era with the Pope and this governor.
Yes.
In response to RFK Jr., Pritzker signs first in nation executive order protecting autism data, because what they want to do, and unfortunately with Doge now, that's going to be so much easier to do, is to go into our health records and be able to find information about us, whether we're taking antidepressants or Adderall. I mean, he has said at one time that people who take Adderall should be put in camps. And I'm like, okay. And so Donald Trump was asked.
Do you know how frequently Adderall is prescribed? It's actually overprescribed, in my opinion, particularly for kids with ADHD.
And I know a lot of people use it recreationally too. So it's like,
including maybe the president of the United States.
And his dry mouth and like his I think that's all the Adderall. But like, he was asked about the Surgeon General today, by the way. And this is what he said.
New nominee for the U.S. Surgeon General who never finished her residency and is not a practicing physician. So can you explain why you picked her to be America's top doctor?
Because Bobby thought she was fantastic. She's she's a brilliant woman who went through Stanford. And as I understand it, she basically wanted to be an academic as opposed to a surgeon. I think she graduated first in her class at Stanford. And Bobby really thought she was great. I don't know her. I listened to the recommendation of Bobby. I met her yesterday and once before. She's a very outstanding person, a great academic, actually. So I think she'll be great.
Oh, yeah. She'll be great. She'll be great.
I listen to Bobby. I don't know her. I don't know. She's some broad that Bobby suggested. So I guess she's great.
Yeah. It's like the Mariah Carey meme.
Right.
I don't know if
I don't
she
know
did
her.
or not. But she's never practiced
medicine. She's never practiced medicine. She doesn't have a medical license. She's a conspiracy theorist, and this is who's going to be the nation's top doctor. It fits. It's apropos. Why would Trump? Okay, again, it's a kakistocracy. Trump putting the worst, most unqualified people in very important positions so that it can make us poorer, sicker, and less educated. Which only he alone can fix it.
Which brings me to now, like in the spirit of the kakistocracy.
Yes.
I pulled this just because I think Julie just makes so many good points here. So he fired all of the liberal Jews essentially from the U.S. Memorial Board, including
Holocaust.
Memorial, right? Yes. Oh, sorry. Holocaust Memorial. Yes. Including Doug Emhoff removed. And this is a nonpartisan, should not be used to be. Now it apparently is MAGA. He appointed a Real Housewife of, was it New Jersey?
Yes, former Real Housewife of New Jersey. She only lasted one season because she was so terrible. And like the cast was like, we can't deal with her. I am an avid Real Housewives watcher, particularly of New Jersey. I've been watching it for almost every season. That's actually true from day one. And she lived actually 2 towns down from me when I moved back to New Jersey for a couple years, and they used to film right in Englewood and Tenafly. That's where she lived, and she was just terrible on
Horrendous.
that show.
Well, and
Terrible.
Julie writes here, which I think is important. Her name is Siggy Flicker, which
Yeah.
what a name.
She's a self-help guru that
Oh,
did
Jesus
nothing but flip
Christ.
out the whole time she was
Yeah.
on the show. She was like the most unstable person,
I-
and that says a lot
Right.
about, and
Well,
she was
right.
a self-help person. I'm like, who's going to you?
It's always
You're
the
on-
ones, right? It's like the ones that need the help themselves.
Yeah.
So it says she's a matchmaker and election denier whose stepson Tyler Campanella stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Campanella was arrested and charged with 5 misdemeanors for his role in the Capitol riot. At the time, Flickr posted an Instagram photo of Campanella inside the Capitol and wrote, quote, "I love patriots so much. Stay safe, Tyler. We love you." She then added hashtag stop the steal.
This part of her I didn't know until
Yeah.
today. I mean, I
Yeah.
always knew she was a Trumper, but I did not know that her stepson was a insurrectionist and that she was supportive of that. I did
Yeah.
not know. That makes her even worse.
Yes, and Julie writes about herself here, which if you don't know Julie, she's our friend. We do our other show over it with her. She says, if you're a regular reader of this newsletter, Salty Politics is her Substack, you'll know that I was born in the former Soviet Union. I vividly remember seeing old men with numbers tattooed on their forearms. Reminders of the Holocaust, which had ended less than 30 years before I was born, were ever present. In fact, I can't remember a time when I was not aware of it. By the time I traveled to Auschwitz in my 30s, I was so steeped in every detail that the camp seemed almost familiar to me, as though I had already been there. In reality, it is worse than you can imagine. So it's just like it's.
And she wrote that because she's Jewish, and she, her family escaped the Soviet Union. And so, and the importance of the Holocaust Museum and preserving that history, especially now when history is under attack from every angle.
Yeah, they want to just erase it.
They want to erase history. And to put someone as unserious as Siggy Flicker on the board of the Holocaust Museum, who is a freaking January 6th insurrectionist sympathizer, is just an insult to everyone who fully appreciates the history and the seriousness of that.
Yep.
It is really just, again, it speaks volumes about the type of people who are in our government and the way that Donald Trump views all of the things that we revere in this country. I mean, the Holocaust Museum is a sacred place. I was at the International Holocaust Museum in Israel. I had the opportunity to visit that, which was incredibly humbling, emotional, especially when you see some of the remnants from the camps, including like the shoes and things like it is really, you don't fully appreciate the horror until you see it. And we need to see it. And
you have to.
You have
to bear witness. We have to bear witness is what Anna always says. And she's like, don't look away.
Yes.
And I know you know this story, Tara, but when we were at the last place, I produced an ad with my friend Anna, who helped me with a lot of the imagery and wording of things, because she is the descendant of Holocaust survivors.
Right.
And we made this ad for International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And we were going through a lot of the imagery and the visuals and whatnot. And I remember saying, like, I don't think we can put that in here. Like, that's really upsetting. And she's like, no, you have to put that in there.
Yeah.
You have to, Michelle. She's like, it happened.
Didn't you win a Webby for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the last Webby you won.
Over here. Yeah. It was one of them. Yeah. And
Anna's on the editing team that created American Girl for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she's a very, very special and close friend. And I have learned so much from her. But, to that point, it's like the atrocity of this. It's 6 million people. Because of the 6 million, there are only 15 million Jews on planet Earth. There would have been close to 200 million had the Holocaust not happened.
Yeah.
If that's unfathomable. And it happened. And the fact that we have people either cheering it on, working for our government, or pretending it didn't happen. And instead we have this woman running or partly running the U.S. Holocaust. I just want people who don't know Real Housewives or whatever. I want you to look at this, okay? And like, yes, it's like funny, ridiculous, but like,
well, not in this context. It just
but like this is who is representing.
Yeah, show the clip.
Birthday,
it's crazy.
And it's 3 tiers, and it's beautiful. If it's being thrown across the restaurant, how many people think that is rude? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Who throws a cake in a restaurant? Who does that?
I don't know what prompted Siggy to do that, but she did, and Melissa was humiliated, and here we go.
That's it. Here you go. Melissa, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. That's it.
I'm embarrassed. I'm completely embarrassed. They're all looking at me. I don't know anyone at the party.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, that is such a Jersey scene. Second of all, Dolores looks fabulous. She's my favorite. And thirdly, are you kidding me that this person is on the Holocaust Museum board? Like, I cannot.
And it like Jeanine Pirro. Okay. Like,
so yes,
so at least she used to be like a prosecutor or whatever. Like,
listen, and a judge, right? Judge Jeanine, but look, she's a horrible person also. Yeah. And the context of this is that actually this is some good news, not the Jeanine Pirro part of it, but what led to it. So today I would love for people to know that your righteous anger concerning this issue of Ed Martin, who was the interim DC U.S. attorney appointed by Trump. His term was coming to an end as the interim. These are Senate appointed, Senate confirmed positions. The U.S. attorneys have to be approved by the Senate. Thank God. And Ed Martin is a horrible human being who is a racist, who showed up on white supremacist podcasts and websites. And he also defended January 6th people. Not just, listen, everyone has a right to defense, except that he was a sympathizer. He was part of the Stop the Steal organizers. He also was a contributor on CNN at a time when I was on CNN in 2017. And if I had thought about this earlier, I would have pulled a clip to play. I've often, people ask me a lot, like, how do you maintain your composure when you're on panels with these MAGAs? And I'm like, I don't know, like, it's just kind of you go into like a little bit of a zone because it's
kind of blackout.
Yeah, you kind of, I don't know. But there have been a handful of times where I have lost it on air. And one of those times, I've talked about this, where I banged the table, and that was with Ed Martin. I thought it was with Jason Miller, but when I realized that Ed Martin was the Ed Martin I was thinking about, because I'm like, why does this guy look familiar? This can't be the CNN guy that I used to argue with in 2017. And then I Googled it, and I put my name in his, and I was like, oh, actually, it is that guy. He was actually, you guys remember when Donald Trump insulted not only the Gold Star families, but it was like the soldiers that got killed in Niger. And he was like really rude to one of the wives, and basically was like, well, your husband knew what he signed up for. It was just terrible. And then he like didn't call a couple people. And I was like, Ed Martin was defending this. And what they did at the time in 2017, this was in the fall of 2017, John Kelly, I believe, had now become the chief of staff. He was like the new chief of staff.
What I wouldn't give.
I know. General John Kelly's son was killed in the line of duty. He's a Gold Star dad. And what MAGA started to do was use examples, because they kept using John Kelly's son and saying how, well, President Obama didn't call him right away, or well, John Kelly is a Gold Star father, and they kept using John Kelly's son to try to whitewash and sanitize Trump's obnoxious disrespect of these families. And Ed Martin kept saying that. And I slammed the table and I said, stop using John Kelly's dead son as a political prop. Stop it. And everybody was like, and it was Ed Martin who did that. That was one of the, I lost it. I was tired of it.
Good.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and it was not inappropriate. It was just like, but I fucking had it at that point. Where
Enough.
I slammed the table. Enough. So this guy, besides all of the things I just said, when I said that he's a racist, and I don't throw that term around lightly. I'm not one of those people that says that everything is racist. This guy was a racist. And he tried to hide that until he got on this radio show. He had like a little radio show or a podcast or some shit. And he didn't like, I think he was talking about me, actually, now that in hindsight, he made a comment on his radio show about something about black haters or something on, that are out there, and these, sensitive black haters.
Was that back then or now?
Back then. No, back then. So the context would have been about right.
Right.
And CNN finally had to fire him. But he was paid as a CNN contributor for 6 months, roughly, at the end of 2017 into early 2018, when he finally had to be fired because of his racist comments. And he was supposed to be the new Jeffrey Lord. Remember when Jeffrey Lord, the little old man who was a MAGA guy?
Right.
I have to say, Jeffrey Lord was actually a very lovely man. He was a nice little old man who had never.
What we didn't know what was ahead of us, because
Right.
he used to drive
Oh my
nuts.
God, he would drive everybody crazy. But I mean, he would spew the propaganda bullshit of Trump, but it kind of like with a smile, kind of
But
like
he wasn't
didn't really believe
mean.
it. Right. He wasn't mean. He wasn't Scott Jennings. Okay. And so everybody, and Jeffrey was actually like, he hadn't had his time in this to shine in like 20 years. He was an old Reagan guy, and he was taking care of his like 92-year-old mother in like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And CNN would send a car for him to bring him into New York City to be on the panels, so that because at the time there were like no, I don't want to say sane, really Trump supporters. Then you had the Scotty Nell Hughes. And
they
believed
that the earth was round. You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
low bar.
It was a low bar. So when he left CNN, it was Ed Martin who was supposed to be the new guy. And you can Google it. You'll see all the headlines about it. And so yeah,
Hold on,
that
I gotta
guy.
Google him because I'm like, Ed Martin.
So that guy was in line to be the DC U.S. attorney, which is a
that
very,
guy.
very important job. And it failed. And people were pissed off. Michael Fanone, Officer Fanone, who was almost killed on January 6th, he put out a big, big call to action to have people call and say, you cannot have this guy as our U.S. attorney here. Are you kidding me? He defended January 6th. He was a sympathizer and a conspiracy theorist. And it looks like it worked because Trump pulled his nomination today. Senator Tillis from North Carolina said, listen, I can't vote for this guy. He said, look, maybe if he was in a different district, but not here in DC after what happened at January 6th, that's where I draw the line. Now, of course, this guy is not a good guy. He shouldn't be a U.S. attorney anywhere, but at least Tom Tillis said no. So his nomination would not make it out of the Judiciary Committee because of how close the numbers are in the Senate.
Right.
And that guy's been pulled. So there you go.
I mean,
Tillis,
I was thinking about this because, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, is a state that's not getting federal aid from Donald Trump right now. They've been denied.
Yep.
I just, I'm sure Tom Tillis is looking at the writing on the wall, being like,
he's up for re-election, so he should be.
Right. And
he
here's the thing. I don't know that any of these people realize how much power they have. I'm like, do you not? Because they're like, oh, well, he's going to primary. Who gives a shit? Do the right thing and people will vote for you.
Yes. Do the right thing. I mean, if only, we have different opinions about Scott Galloway, and I agree with a lot of what he says. And I think there's also some issues with what he says, but there's a happy medium. But he was talking today about how he's disappointed about how many CEOs, law firms, people in power that have that power collectively to push back against this authoritarian bullshit coming from Trump. And he's like, I cannot believe, I'm so disappointed in how many of these people haven't done it.
Nothing.
He's like, whoa, what are we doing? He goes, I think you're going to start to see, all it takes is one, and then you start to see more follow.
Yeah, because nobody wants to be the first.
Nobody wants to be the first.
Well, in a whole lot of different things.
But you see what Harvard is doing. You see what Costco has done. You see what I believe Marriott, I think, also stood up and told them to F off with their, DEI stuff, that you're not going to tell us what to do. Was it Delta Airlines or somebody?
I'm sure it was Delta. Yeah. Delta's
they're like, we're not doing that either.
I love the flight attendants at Delta. They're the best.
And so you're starting to see and some of the law firms that are the ones that didn't bend the knee, they're starting to go like, screw you, because the ones that did bend the knee, they look like idiots.
They look stupid and weak and like And here's the other thing that I just don't really seem to understand. And I have heard some people talking about this recently. I wish that I could give them credit. I just don't remember who it was. That why don't these people who are, or it's Stephanie Rule, I think, the people who are leading Fortune 500 companies, like, do they not understand that fascism is bad for business? Like, I don't, like, the middle class and like working people are the reason they're rich.
Right.
I don't.
Nicole Wallace. Nicole Wallace said, she goes, haven't these, right? She said it today. She's like, don't these people realize that capitalism thrives in democracy?
Yes.
Healthy democracies breed good capitalist success. So
and
like,
unless you're an oligarch, like in Russia, like, which is what, like 10 people,
right?
You're not going to benefit from this at all. Like, and I just, again, you all have the power to do something here. You all do. And it's like, unfortunately, all this has been left up to little old us, marching in the street and yelling into my microphone. But it's true. But it's, I'm like,
that's
you guys have,
right? That's a piece of it.
It is
one part of it.
It is. And to the Scott Galloway point, I'm not going to get on a tangent here.
I know. That's a different show.
No, I know, but I
saw in the chat, but I was driving and I couldn't respond.
Here's the thing about Scott Galloway. I follow him everywhere.
Yeah, he's very smart.
He's brilliant. I could listen to him speak all day long. I love his podcast with Kara Swisher.
Yes.
I love the conversations that they have. But this one particular topic of the male loneliness epidemic thing.
I know. Look, he does have very good points about this. He's right about that. What he leaves out, and he used a phrase today that I thought was interesting. I can't remember what it was, but I kept saying in my mind, I need to write that down, where he was using the example, because I think he's very aware of how women like us feel about this. So like, he's trying to, right, because it's like, we hear that, but you're leaving out the fact that the patriarchy has been in control of everything from day one.
For centuries.
Right, from day one.
We are the first generation of women to ever have true freedom in this country. We are the first. Well, until Dobbs. But like, I'm saying, like, we were the first women who were given a chance.
Right. Right.
And what does it say that the men of our generation, when we're given that chance, have all of a sudden been like, oh, I'm being left out. I'm like,
well, he made an interesting point today about this when he was saying that for some of the women who voted for Trump, and that they were looking at how, yes, he acknowledged that women are doing the best ever, and that women are surpassing men, and that, mothers who see their two daughters that are like, one's in law school, one's in grad school, and their son is sitting in the basement vaping, playing video games. And he was like, why? There's been a failure and a disconnect there somewhere. And he doesn't talk about why that happened. He says that they are the byproduct of I forgot the term that he used. I got to go back and look at it. But he said something about, he acknowledges the advantages that his generation, which is my generation, I believe are like me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he was like, we're beneficiaries of all of the he never uses the word patriarchy, which is the part that I'm like, that's what it was, dude. Like, you got to acknowledge that.
Like, you have to, right. And that's the thing that is it's like infantilizing. Like, first of all, it's infantilizing them that they don't know better, which they do. And there's a whole I
think that's where
raising men to know, like, that's a whole part of it too.
Well, he also talks about that there's a lot of single parent households, and that there is scientific evidence that shows that men that grow up without a male role model are more likely
and that's why he's
successful.
And that's why he's all about, like, big brothers, big sisters,
mentors,
and mentorship, which
more male teachers and all of that. The book that I have right here,
by the way,
Adrift, right? It's Drift.
Yes, which my husband, I think I've told you, Joe.
Yep.
My husband's an attorney, and for however many years, I think it's been, 13, 14 years now, has worked with a organization in New Jersey called NJ Leap. And what they do is provide mentorship and training on constitutional debate for kids in Newark. And it's like, and Joe has made a huge difference in some of these young men's life. Like, they come to our holiday party, like, they're grown up now. Like, it's really great. I mean, one of them went to Georgetown, he just got his master's degree. Like these kinds of relationships do make a huge
difference.
Yeah.
And only there is a certain connection and a certain thing that only men can have with boys, that boys need that. It's a healthy, you need that. And it impacts girls too. I mean, in a different way.
Yeah.
But there, so there is a lot of what Scott says makes a lot of sense. And I think he's right about it, but I just think he undersells a little bit.
There's a piece of this
that's missing. That's missing. And I think maybe it's because he doesn't want people to automatically be turned off by that, because when you start talking and using those terms, then people tune out. It's like when you use the term racist or racism, people go, they don't want to hear it. And so maybe
or like
he's
women's issues, people
right?
Well,
they're like, oh, we don't want to
anymore.
hear that. Or like feminists, they're like, you're feminazis. They've kind of made a thing out of certain terminologies, which is it's unfortunate because it speaks to a certain reality. But I think it was an interesting conversation today on Nicole Wallace's show, and I, I'm like, he's right. The majority of what he talked about was right. We just don't know what exactly the why is, where the disconnect was, and there needs to be a little bit more acknowledgement of kind of what happened.
Well, we have laws about violence, right? We have these laws about violence against women, and I'm always like, well, who's doing the who's doing the violence?
Right.
Because why are we being centered in this law when it could be, anyways.
But anyway,
we were talking about people doing the right thing though.
Yes.
And Harvard has 99.9% been doing the right thing.
Yes.
They did platform.
Oh yes, I pointed
Curtis
this out
Yarvin,
to you the other day. Yes.
And that is troubling.
Well, what happened is because those of you who've been around a while know that I was a fellow at Harvard, so I have connections there to the Institute of Politics, and I'm still very close to my kids that were in my fellowship program there. It was still one of the highlights of my life. So I get the Crimson and I read it, and I saw this and I said, oh, and I sent it to Michelle, that there was a debate recently that the John Adams Society sponsored this debate. It was not sanctioned by the faculty of Harvard.
I would assume,
it was not, but the faculty could have stopped it, but they didn't sanction it because Harvard's been under pressure to have more diverse voices from the right. So they let this student group bring Curtis Yarvin there, and the scholar Danielle Allen agreed to debate him. And they had it at the faculty club, which was interesting because, like I said, they could have shut that down, but they didn't. But you know what? Fine. So it is Harvard. There's plenty of intellectual oomph there that could push back against this guy. Please tell me you have the photo of him.
I mean, there's several photos of him.
No, the Schlepp photo that you had of him.
I don't have the Schlepp one. I don't know where it was. I couldn't find it.
Oh, it's in our chat.
But
this guy. But this guy, if looking at him, you're like, of course, no wonder he like hates.
Yeah, he's like, he's got
women.
He's like, so, like he's just a schleppy loser, and like
he is,
but a very powerful loser.
Yes.
Just like the rest of the techno bros, the nerd Reich, as you may call them.
Yes.
I'll just read part of this here. It says, Curtis Yarvin, the computer engineer turned neo-monarchist blogger, seems to be everywhere these days. His argument that American democracy has exhausted itself and needs to be replaced by a form of one-man rule has made him a star on the right, reportedly catching the ear of powerful figures like Mark Andreessen, whatever.
I think.
Andreessen, Peter Thiel, and J.D. Vance.
Okay, can I just stop you for a second? He's more than caught the ear of. I don't like the fact
he's
that
in the ear of.
He is the political guru. They need to be honest about the influence this guy has had on Peter Thiel and all of these guys. Stop underselling the influence of this guy. He's not just some blogger who caught the ear of. The guy is the political guru of Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance and Mark Andreessen. He has incredible influence here. Jesus. Go ahead, keep going.
Well, no, it's, I mean, there's not really much else to say here other than the fact we've talked about him here. Many other, podcasts and whatever have talked about Curtis Yarvin. Rachel Maddow did a segment on him. He is a philosopher who used to write under a pen name. I forget what the name is, like some weird name, Nimbus or something. Some Harry Potter sounding thing. But he thinks that America needs to get over our dictator phobia. And he is part of this, like, you know, thought group that is coming up with the network states that basically
techno-feudalism is what it's called.
Techno-feudalism, the reactionary something or other too.
There's that
dark enlightenment.
Neo-reactionary, dark enlightenment. All of this, none of this is good for those of us who are not tech bros. They basically want tech CEOs to run like monarchs and control these network states
and these little countries.
In these little countries that are going to be self-sufficient, run by the tech CEOs, and that replaces the states in our country.
And they want us to be They want us to be little peasants, like making the little iPhones and stuff that like people like us, and you too, if you're watching. And then the second that we're not productive or, you know, can give to make them rich or powerful, they want to kill us and make us into biodiesel. And those are his words.
His words. We didn't make it up.
Right. And this is the man who is not just in the ear of. He is the, to Tara's point, the political guru for Peter Thiel, who is the godfather. I want to emphasize, yes, Elon Musk is very rich and very powerful, and it seems to be everywhere. But Peter Thiel is the alpha to Elon Musk's beta. He is quieter. He is behind the scenes. He funds everything. Period tracking apps. You know, like
JD Vance's Senate campaign.
JD Vance's Senate campaign. He's the one who took JD by the hand and walked him into the Oval Office.
Took him by the something.
Well,
but yes.
But like, and so Curtis Yarvin, and Curtis Yarvin is the person who has come up with a lot of this like policy and thing. And listen, his ideas
he was at the inauguration. He's at the inauguration, welcomed. They had a special ball for people like him with all the tech bros and the billionaires, and he was there. So this is more than just, you know, a casual guy, just some blogger. He's not, and he's very dangerous in his ideology.
And his ideas are at the center of Project 2025.
Correct.
And like this again, with the Venn diagram, right? He's part of many of them and is a very, very dangerous person. And so
one of our astute watchers, supporters here, I don't have my glasses. Jane Stoker, here we go. Elon Musk has already bought a village. There it is. Wait, there you go. Elon Musk has already bought a village where he can start a techno state. That is correct. It's called Starbase in Texas.
They had an election last week.
An election. I mean, it wasn't. 2/3 of the people who live there are
they work for him. They work
for SpaceX. They work for SpaceX. So, you know, and speaking of that, which is something else that happened this week, Elon Musk, we are hearing now that in the trade negotiations, the State Department is being told, there was a cable that went out, that the State Department's being told to basically pressure some of these countries to contract Starlink if they want to begin getting more favorable trade positions with the US. So now the US has become a broker for Starlink.
And this is where the mainstream media, just parroting this thing out of the White House saying, well, Elon Musk is taking a step back because Tesla, blah, 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 blah. He is not. He is still inside as ever. As, you know, here's an example, right, of the Starlink thing. He is still all up in it. He's still at the White House just because he's a PR disaster. And it's not good for the administration, and it's not good for his bottom line because he's crazy and nuts. And so, you know, and a bad person and throwing up Nazi salutes. So like all of these things, that is why he's taking a step back. He is not. That is a public step back. It is not an operational step back.
That's right. That's right. Because like Norma Trenkel just pointed out, if you have ever watched Thiel being interviewed by someone asking serious questions and holding him to answer follow-ups, you would understand why he mostly stays in the background. Yeah, they're all like these weird, awkward weirdos. He's like, they're all of them.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and he's also says very openly he doesn't think women should have the right to vote. And he's a gay man too, by the way. So he sees no use for women other than to have children and to fulfill their destiny as women, not vote, which, you know, again, is part of this whole Project 2025 super right wing, like Heritage Society thing that like they are talking about this more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And I just want to say quickly, because Jessica Valenti brought this point up and she made a really good point. If you should all definitely subscribe to her Substack if you don't already. She said that a lot of left-wing bros, podcast bros, have been having these right-wing guys on to have this like debate about whether or not women should have a right to vote. Guys, okay. I know none of you are probably listening right now, but if you are listening to us and you happen to be a patron or a listener of those podcasts, please write them. Please send them comments and tell them to please stop this, because what you are doing is you are platforming this debate as legitimate. This is not a legitimate argument to be made. Stop giving them airtime, because you know what? Somebody's going to be listening and being like, oh yeah, that's like a legitimate thing. It's like, this isn't Crossfire, okay? This is, again, yet another constitutional right that has been granted to women. And they want to take another one away. And this one is pretty fundamental. Like rights to our own bodies, but like now this is our actual voice into how we participate in democracy. So please, for the love of God, you all need to stop platforming, stop having them on. I understand this is probably like you're trying to do the right thing here and have the stop. The right thing would be to just like maybe talk about it on your show and how nuts it is. Do not bring them on, please. I am begging you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because why are we debating this? It's like, are we going to be debating the merits of the Civil Rights Act?
Like, do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, we're heading there. We're heading there with what they're doing with DEI. I mean, they're literally coming for the Black History Museum. The African American History Museum is under attack. And the director, Kevin Young, who was a great director of the museum, he resigned last month. They have no director now. And they're trying to go after exhibits. Donald Trump signed that executive order saying that, oh, it's basically, we don't want to hear anything bad about America. And there's too much of that, you know, shaming white people in the Black History Museum. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable with the fact that white people enslaved Black people for 400 years in this country. Too fucking bad that makes you uncomfortable. That's what happened. So you can try to erase history all you want, but Black folks have rights in this country, and they have money, and they have voices, and they have platforms, and there's no way.
And movie studios.
That's right. And movie studios like Tyler Perry that owns a studio that used to be owned by it was a Confederate army base. So you're not going to silence the voices of Black folks in this country. You can try all you want to erase history, but that shit is not going to happen. So,
and it's like, and here's the thing too, like as a white person, like just because we're talking about these things, like white people did this. Yes. No one's saying you did. Okay. No one's saying you have to take responsibility, like as a person who did this thing that you didn't do.
It's an acknowledgement.
It's about acknowledgement, because if we cannot acknowledge, we cannot heal. If we cannot heal, we will never come together. We will never, ever move forward. Not ever.
If you don't know history, then you cannot not repeat it, right? Those who don't know history is doomed to repeat it.
And
that's
listen,
the same thing with the Holocaust Museum. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but people are alive today, like our parents, when people of color did not have equal rights. It was only 1964. It wasn't that freaking long ago.
I was watching some video today, Tara. It's funny you say that, because it was a photograph of the students at Little Rock, you know, integrating. And in that photo of the white young men taunting them is Jerry Jones, who is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys as a young man in that photograph. And like, that is how recent it was. He owns he owns a football team. And this is why, you know, we have people like Colin Kaepernick, and like, it's just like, there's a reason why. And nobody wants to think about it. I mean, I'm not saying nobody, but a lot of people, the people that are in power now don't want any of us to be thinking or talking about it because they don't want the country to heal.
No, they don't want the country to know about redlining and why when you talk about black wealth and lack of it, because, oh, I'm sorry, a lot of it has to do with the fact that banks there was financial discrimination and banks would not give mortgages or loans to people of color, even if they were qualified for it. They redlined, which was what they like sectioned off parts of, the cities where only you could go there. Then they would lower the property values and all of these things. Like they were
all of Long Island.
Systemic. Yes,
that's why Long Island was so white for so long. It's just
look, if people, the perfect example of this, trying to erase history before this happened, was Tulsa. Oklahoma actively tried to erase the Tulsa riots of 1919.
I didn't know about them.
Yes.
I admittedly, I didn't know about it until
I didn't either until 2020 when it became a thing, because we were coming up on the 100-year anniversary and there were people who were still alive when it happened. And it was and then I started researching this and I was like, "Oh my God, the Black Wall Street and and how thriving the community was in Tulsa, and black and white people didn't like it and they burned it to the ground." And it was awful. And the black community there has never recovered.
Right.
They built a highway to separate the community.
Which again, Robert Moses, I mean, in that whole thing, because infrastructure is also very racist. And that's yet another
environmental
thing.
Racism.
And that's another thing that Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden were really, really trying to fix. I mean, in Syracuse, where I went to school and near where I grew up, they're trying to redo it with a huge investment from the federal government. Thank you, Joe Biden. Because these kinds of highways and stuff went right through neighborhoods. I mean, there's a reason why they would say on the other side of the tracks. And that was the reason why. And I just want to say, I want to just this comment here. 99% of whites in the South did not own slaves. It was the extremely rich, the oligarchs of that time period that owned slaves. Okay.
Are we going to have to really is this, are we going to have to go through the lost cause rewriting of history here?
I know. This is yes. Okay. And the oligarchs right now are running thing. You'd think that they don't have like an army, like a mob of people who go along with it and are fine with it. And also seem to think it's just.
And the Civil War wasn't about slavery either, right? We're not doing this. Okay. No. And this is what happens. And this is why they want to get rid of books and why they're banning books and why they're going after the Department of Education and going after curriculums so they can do what like they did in Oklahoma, where they erase the history of what actually happened in Tulsa for like 100 years. There was a commission that was finally passed in the legislature.
Central Park 5,
That went back. That's okay. That went back to make sure that they could extrapolate that oral history, which is why Michelle always talks about writing things down and making sure that you have, that we can keep that history going in case something like this happens again on a larger scale. But that is exactly what they did in Oklahoma, and we're not going to fucking do that shit here. So
no,
moving on.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, and I just saw a comment about the Central Park 5 too. I mean, like this is where it's like generationally, this kind of hatred and prejudice and racism is passed from generation to generation, especially in the South, especially in families like the Trumps.
Yes. So I suggest that person, whoever wrote that comment, go to Birmingham, Alabama, and go to the National Lynching Memorial, and then come back to me, because I don't want to hear that bullshit.
Yep. And I know we're running out of time here, so I just want to touch on just a couple things very quickly, because there's a picture I really wanted to show. So obviously today was VE Day, Victory in Europe, and Trump's trying to rename some holidays. It's very, very stupid, and I don't even know where to begin here, but there is a celebration of VE Day, the 80th anniversary. Well, first of all, Trump mocked for sharing photos of soldiers at Iwo Jima on anniversary of World War II Europe victory. What an embarrassment. What a genius.
This just doesn't care. Not reading looks like. This is what not knowing history. This is what an ignoramus looks like. Never picked up a history book.
But this picture, I just loved this. Winston Churchill's great grandson lights a candle at Westminster Abbey service commemorating the 80th anniversary of VE Day. I just got done watching the Blitz in Britain Netflix documentary about Winston Churchill. I see that, like what these people went through what the leadership that he exemplified during that time, the hope that he gave people during a time when their families were, I mean, I didn't realize this. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe I did know this and I just misremembered it. 400,000 children were like evacuated out of parts of England and sent to go live with families in Wales. Like it's crazy.
To protect them.
To protect them from the Blitz.
bombing and
And it just went on for days and days. I mean, 100 days, 150, like it just every single day.
But
and
the most important part of that, which is something I think people need to be reminded of, which is probably a good way to end this show tonight, is something that you have always said, Michelle, which I have co-opted, that we need more Churchill and less Chamberlain, because Churchill did not surrender. I gave a speech recently about this, the importance of never surrendering. And that was I encourage everyone to read Churchill's Never Surrender speech.
Yep.
Those were those kinds of fireside chats.
Go listen to them.
Please, because that's the energy we need right now. We are in a similar existential fight, just the bombs are not falling yet. The bombs are not falling yet.
Yeah.
We don't want to get there.
Exactly. And speaking of more Churchills and people standing up, I just want to give props to the cast of Les Miserables.
Yes.
On tour. Now, if you watch the show, you know that I've been talking about this. And again, it is not my story to tell, but I have been privy to this information for quite some time. Because of personal relationships I have with former colleagues. So exclusive, some Les Mis cast members plan to boycott Trump's attendance at the Kennedy Center performance next month. So I think it's on June 11th. Donald Trump is going to be at the opening night of Les Mis at the Kennedy Center. And I can tell you, because it's talked about in this article, that the company, the producers, gave the cast the option, which was very nice, because there are, concerns for safety and all kinds of things. And then, of course, there's the moral protest as well. So it's 10 to 12. I don't know if it's any more than that. Maybe it is. But Rick Grinnell, who Donald Trump put in charge of the Kennedy Center.
Another self-hating gay man.
Very self-hating gay man, says, any performer who isn't professional enough to perform for patrons of all backgrounds, regardless of political affiliation, won't be welcomed, he said. In fact, we think it would be important to out those vapid and intolerant artists to ensure producers who know who they shouldn't hire, and that the public knows which shows have political litmus tests to sit in the audience. The Kennedy Center wants to be a place where people of all political stripes sit next to each other and never ask who someone voted for, but instead enjoys a performance together. Now, that's what the Kennedy Center used to be.
That's what it was before you fuckers took over.
Right. That's right. And so
before the fascists took over.
So I'll say to the members of the company that I have spoken to, there was an initial, I think, a little bit of panic when that statement came out, because you have to understand, these are just regular people who are just on the road with a show. They're
don't
not
make that money, people.
No, they don't make that much money. I mean, that's the thing. Broadway touring companies do not make very much money. They they're living out of a bag, and they're professional. Like these are like world-class performers. Like they are incredible singers, actors, musicians. And so this was a little jarring, I think, at first, but I think once the shock wore off, they're like, all right. And
I hope they boycott the whole show.
Well,
I really hope that they walk away from the whole thing. I really do, because
I don't know how they cover these roles.
Right. And I don't, and the thing about it is, how dare they? How dare Rick Grinnell and anyone tell performers who they can and cannot perform for, or why? They are free to perform as they wish, when they wish, in a free democratic society. This is Nazi Germany shit. You're going to perform, or else we're going to out you, and you're going to be punished, because how dare you have the agency to decide when and who you perform for? Fuck off.
Well,
okay. And again, they're accusing everyone of everything that they're actually doing. They're the vapid intolerance bastards, not the performers. So I hope that they say, you know what? We're not going to perform at the Kennedy Center. We're going to take our Les Mis production and go somewhere else. Like, I don't know, somewhere else that can accommodate it, because we're not going to be intimidated into performing for a fucking fascist.
That's right. That's right, Tara. And when I spoke to the people that I know in the company, I was like, listen, I know you're new to this and this is jarring and it's upsetting. And I said, but you have no idea the people who will have your back, that do
Yes.
have your back. I said, our community, listen, thousands, if not millions of people will have your backs. And
Yes.
so,
and also it's at a time where June is Pride Month, and the Kennedy Center, because Rick Grinnell's a self-hating gay man, they canceled all the World Pride events.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the arts community is tolerant, is diverse, is open and welcoming to everyone. And the Kennedy Center has become the complete opposite under these people's rule. And that's what it is. They're ruling over the Kennedy Center. And so I hope that there's somewhere else. If I were them, if it's possible, I hope that they say, you know what? We're not doing this. You don't get to dictate to us where we perform. I really hope they do. And I hope someone, because there's lots of people who are philanthropists that love the arts, pays the company triple what they would have gotten if they performed at the Kennedy Center. I wish I was a billionaire, because
I know, same.
I would pay them triple if they to go and stand on principle, because I'm sorry, this is bullshit.
Listen, I don't know that, and I don't know that the show is going to be able to happen. I just say that as logistically what I know about understudies. I'm like, they're going to have to either bring people in who used to do the show and rehearse them for a few days, and then do put-in rehearsals and put them in. But that's going to be a lot of people that they're going to have to cover. I mean, 12 people out of a show is
right.
Funny.
I mean, that's a big production.
Like during COVID and norovirus and stuff, if 12 people called out of a Broadway show, they canceled the show.
Yeah, that's
so it. Yeah, and that's so that's going to be very difficult. I don't know how it's going to work, but that's where I don't know who they're going to get to bring in. I mean, nobody I know that's an actor is going to want to do this. Nobody.
Why would they? And nobody at that caliber. You're not going to find that many, maybe one or two, but you're not going to replace a dozen people in
a show about the French Revolution.
The irony of this is just again, Trump does. Did you not pay attention to what the show's about?
Kim's asking.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, Kim's asking, where is equity on this? I don't know. I'm a member of Actors Equity Union. That's a very good question. I may ask them.
I'm sure. Listen, this is not over. I was at an event. No, this is far from over. It's still a month away. A lot can happen between now and then. I was at an event in DC on Tuesday night, celebrating the new president of the Americans for the Arts organization. And she's a fan of the Seneca Project, by the way. She came over to me and said what a fan she was. And also we had another person who was a fan. I just have to tell this real quick. So I'm at this arts event celebrating her appointment, and a gentleman comes over to me and we start talking. He was talking to someone I knew. And then, I said, yeah, I the Seneca Project's my organization, but he goes, wait, that's your organization? I said, yeah, I co-founded it with Michelle Kinney. And he goes, you don't understand. Your ad, American Girl, was the greatest political ad I've ever seen. He said, I actually brought friends over for a dinner party and put your ad on our big screen television to play it over and over again. And we just got all the feels. And he's like, you don't understand. I sent that ad to everyone I know. Thank you so much. That ad was life-changing. And I was like, oh my God. I said, can you say this again? And I made him say it again. And I sent it to Michelle, because she lives in New York and I'm in DC.
Yeah.
And I made him do it again. And I sent it to Michelle, and she was bawling. It was quite the event. I also got a phone call from the former president of the United States that day, which I cannot go into why, but I'm just going to say that, yes, I have a voicemail message from former President Joe Biden, and he is a lovely, lovely man. It's a personalized message to me about something, because we have a mutual connection there. And I was thrilled. And I missed the call because I was at the event, but I'm actually glad I missed the call, because now I have it forever.
Yeah, I know. I played it for Joe, my Joe. And he's like, wait a second, is this AI? And I was like, no, he called Tara.
He actually called me, and what a thrill. The only reason I wish I hadn't missed it was so that I could have told him directly that it was one of the greatest political thrills of my life and honors of my life to help him get elected in 2020.
Same.
But
changed my life.
if I ever get to see him again in person, I will tell him that.
And if I ever meet him in person, I will tell him, because that is my bucket list item to meet.
Yeah.
I've never met a former president, but Joe Biden, I think, you know,
Oh.
because of the urgency, I feel like, because
Just
of
all
his
of it.
age, I really want to.
I know. He's just such a good man. And his wife, you know, I am a huge fan of. I absolutely adore Dr. B. A couple of people asked, did we see them on The View? I did not. I missed it.
I missed it too.
He's on The View all the time. And Michelle knows a very funny story about Joe Biden being at The View and Whoopi Goldberg and me. And so anyway, we can't share that, unfortunately, because I can't, but they're all wonderful, lovely people. And I don't know, did you see Whoopi at the Met Gala?
I didn't watch any of the Met Gala this year.
Fabulous. As we're talking about the arts and wrapping up the show, I know the Met Gala is like a hoity-toity thing, but we're all into it. And this year,
it's a celebration of artists.
It is, and of fashion. And I mean, and Ivanka still doesn't have an invite to come back. But this year, the theme was Black dandyism, which everyone should Google. It's all about fashion and the political statement that fashion made, particularly in the Black community at a time where Black folks were not equal. And it was a way of expression and political statements against the establishment that was oppressing them. And so that was the theme this year. And I'm telling you, everybody looked fantastic. And Whoopi Goldberg, my friend, killed it. So shout out to Whoopi. Shout out to Derek Monroe, who is her stylist and hairstylist, who is amazing. And he's also on The View. And when I go on The View, he oftentimes, if you see me looking fabulous on The View, it is thanks there to her incredible team there. Derek is part of that. And, you know, the makeup artists there are just the best. And they had Whoopi looking
amazing.
Fabulous. Well, amazing. Thomas Brown was the designer.
I have to go and find the pictures, because I didn't look this year because it was like,
I have to send you the article. I'll send you the article about the whole Black dandyism thing, and then and the history of it. It's amazing.
And not to get into this because we got to go, but I was surprised, and maybe they did invite him and I didn't see it, but there's a guy named, his stage name is Dandy Wellington, and he is always around in New York. Now, Tara, I don't even know if you know this about me, but I used to go to these like events in New York. There's this whole underground community of people who dress like olden times.
Yes, because you told me you guys do this. Like you used to do it every year.
At
the period dancing, dressing.
Yeah, so there's little events like all over the city all the time, and it's like there used to be this company called Prohibition Productions, and they would have old timey orchestras and bands and like at different clubs and bars and stuff around the city, and like everybody would be swing dancing or like doing Lindy or something, and I would go to these all the time, and I'd dress up and I'd do the hair and the whole thing. And
I told you that I would dress up in the 40s because the 40s, minus the fact that I wouldn't be equal. That part out.
Well, yes.
But the 40s are my favorite decade for music, style, and
it's
movies.
Like woke 40s. We love that.
Yes,
woke 40s.
We like the woke 40s.
And so for Memorial Day, during Fleet Week, they, on top of the Intrepid, they used to have
Sex in the City episode.
Yes, they used to have a whole party there, and like right around where the airplanes are on the deck. And so they had 3 huge orchestras, and they would play like Glenn Miller, and then they would have like swing dancing competition, and like Dandy Wellington always came, and he was always in the top hat. He's like so good looking, and like, and this was just like part of his
suits
all the time, every time. Like look him up.
Like
he's got like
Instagram.
Instagram.
Those guys.
Yes, and like he was always somebody you look forward to seeing because you wanted to see what he was wearing, or and he was just a huge part of this kind of underground culture in New York City, and it's so fun. I haven't gone obviously since COVID. COVID kind of like changed things, and they haven't had the thing on.
You should go this year. Go.
Well, they're not having it anymore because I feel like the production company lost a lot of money during COVID because but they would have like burlesque shows and like and it's just so fun, and it's like a chance to kind of step back in time and be somebody else and celebrate the fashion and the of the time, but not the politics, because it wasn't a good time for women, it wasn't a good time for Black people,
like, it wasn't, but the fashion and the music was phenomenal. And thank you, Eric Huddleston, for your lovely compliment. He says
Oh,
these Seneca
thank you.
shows blow away any network news. They are also a lot funnier than regular TV. Thank you. Well, laughter is
Thank
good
you,
like
Eric.
medicine. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have to bring some levity into these dark times and
Yeah.
shine a little light on things. So
Yeah.
anyway, so there you go. There you have it.
There you have it.
That's the stakes for
And
today.
I'm gonna play us out with American Girl because the Webbies are on Monday. We won't see you until after that, at least on this show. So we do want to thank everyone again for voting for American Girl and the Seneca Project of the Webbies this year. And for that reason, you know, and because of you, we share this with you. And you know,
and if you want to see any more of our ads, you can always go. They're all on our Seneca Project website
like and
subscribe. Our YouTube. Yes, they're on our YouTube channel. Depending on where you're watching, go like and subscribe to our YouTube. It helps the algorithm and all of our content.
Us.
Yes, and all of our content is there. And as we get more funding, we can make more content. It's all funding contingent for us. So thank you for those of you who continue to support us. We can always use more. The more support we get, the more content
we can do. Absolutely.
Yes.
So with that said, every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we going to do? We're going to play American Girl.
Indeed.
And we're going to see you all next week.
Yes.
So take care, everyone. Stay safe. We love you. Have a good one.
Women's suffrage is a long story of hard work and heartache crowned by victory.
Was it so hard being an American girl?
Women throughout the country are committed to winning these rights for themselves.
Was it so hard living in a first problem world?
I'm Connie Chung, CBS News, New York.
When the American promise is the land of the free, but I'm waiting for the bill for the air that I breathe. Was it so hard being an American girl?
I do.
I pray that we all remember our children are watching.
Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do? Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do? Every heart solves to all the white and American girls. What are we gonna do? Every heart.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do?